Hello and welcome everyone to another webinar from Umi. We're so happy that all of our audience are here to join us today for these little lunch and learns. I'm your host for today, Kirsty, and this is my lovely co-host Ashley Smith. Special guest today is Natalie Eminae from Ococo Media. So Natalie, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what Ococo do?
Absolutely. So I'm Natalie. I set up Ococo in July 2012, which seems like 2 minutes ago, but actually makes us absolutely ancient in social media marketing agency terms. So we are exclusively a social media marketing agency. We only deal with clients' social media. The official party line is we work with businesses of all sizes, all sectors. We do have a couple of really interesting niches. I love working with small businesses. They're so small and so agile that they can absolutely get things done. We also do a little bit of work in the legal sector, which is great fun and eye-opening for regulations. There's nothing quite like it. And we do a lot of work with the automotive sector, so at car dealership or manufacturer level. So yeah, there's always something really, really exciting going on in my office. We're a small team. We're based up in Gateshead, and we work sort of nationally in terms of clients might outsource their social media to us, and we work with them in the trenches and we prep everything, we manage all their accounts, and we're with them sort of day to day for kind of long periods of time. Or we provide consultancy and strategy development for businesses that want a bit of an expert steer for their own internal marketing team, or so they can deliver an awesome standout social media strategy themselves.
So Natalie, could you give us an overview of exactly what to expect in 2020?
Yes, absolutely. And I think 2020 is going to be another super exciting year of social media marketing. And we are only a couple of days in at this point, and we're already seeing some quite big trends, quite big changes, and lots of things that businesses of all sizes and sectors can really capitalize on to make a difference to their business bottom line as we go through the next 12 months.
Okay.
In terms of the start of the year, I always think it's a great time for a business to reevaluate what networks they need to be on and where their priorities are. One of the things that we do behind the scenes in the office is once a quarter we update our social media stats in line with how social media companies issue their information about who uses their networks, how big their audience sizes are, and what types of things people do on those platforms. So it's well worth, as a starting point as we go into the new year, having a little look at the latest stats and trends from the networks themselves and starting to evaluate, okay, does my business really need to be on this particular social media platform? We saw a lot of turbulence with certain networks last year as user demographics shift quite dramatically.
Yeah.
Things like Instagram that have seemed to have come out of nowhere the last couple of years. Certainly the rise of TikTok has been phenomenal. So my advice would really be, if you are running a small business and your marketing resource is a set amount of time or a set amount of budget, it really is more important than anything else to concentrate on the networks that are going to deliver for you. And the ones that are going to deliver for you are where your audience are.
Yeah.
So have a little look at the most recent stats and actually think very, very long and hard as to whether your audience is still on that platform and still doing the types of things you would want them to do on there. And it might be a time that you might need to reshuffle your priorities, and it could be something like Twitter's always performed well for you, but actually over the last 6 months there's been less of a conversation. Have you got a bit of additional resource that you could put into a new platform or explore? Or are there any new features? We saw a big shift with LinkedIn in video at the back end of 2019 that's set to expand in 2020. So LinkedIn suddenly this much more dynamic video platform. Is it something that your business really wants to jump onto and take advantage of?
Yeah.
And for businesses who are looking to get these stats and evaluate their performances, where would you advise them to go, and what tools can they use to get that?
Yeah, absolutely. So most social networks will issue their own sort of press releases around that. But for me, I just very quickly type in how many active monthly users on whatever the platform that I want to research,
Right.
and then go with that in terms of stats. It saves me time for actually hunting on individual social media kind of websites. So how many active monthly users on, and then whatever your platform for your search will bring up some really quick, interesting stats. stats, it saves you having to trawl through, but it means that you are able to then get that immediate information at your fingertips. The key phrase is active monthly users. That's something where social networks, particularly when we used to see things like Google Plus, if we can remember that back in the good old days, people used to, and networks used to be able to muddy their figures a little bit with how many registered users they've got.
Right.
Now, when it comes to registered users, it's still interesting how many people have registered on a platform, but it's nowhere near as interesting as how many people use it month on month basis. So my advice is go for that active monthly users. And within that, don't be afraid to kind of drill down further and think, okay, realistically, something like TikTok has 800 million active monthly users, but 80% of them are between the ages of 16 and 35. Is that really where my audience are? And even if they are, let's say you're an accountancy firm that works with younger entrepreneurs, on TikTok, are they really thinking about their accounts? And be absolutely brutally honest as to whether there's a space to market your business. You'll soon find there's networks where there certainly is and networks where there probably isn't. And be cruel to be kind. Even if you love using Instagram, if it's not right for your business, just use it personally. You don't have to be a business that's active on Instagram if you are B2B and you don't create a whole lot of visual content. Be super picky, because your efforts will pay off on the networks where your audience are active, and you'll just be sort of creating a rod for your own back if you're pushing a network that's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Cool.
So thinking about that, because I know there's this drive now to get everybody to think about what platforms are best rather than having a little bit of everything. So instead of having like all your baskets, is there anything specifically that we should be leaving in 2019 in terms of social media marketing?
Yeah, I think definitely posting for the sake of posting, having a presence on networks that aren't going to deliver for you, and also just creating content for the sake of creating content. I think as we see more and more businesses, certainly if we look at Facebook, 1.6 billion users are now connected to a business on Facebook. Now, when I first started out in digital marketing back in 2010, competition was super low. If you were the only accountancy firm or car dealership on Facebook, you had a huge audience potential, because anyone that was interested in you, the competition was very low in terms of competing against other people that offered the services that you do. Now every man and his dog's business has a relevant social media page, so the competition is really, really tough. And it means that we're constantly striving for engagement. We see this with networks like Instagram, where they have moved distinctively away from likes into other metrics of, is your content meaningful to people? So we're seeing a really big shift away from what we would refer to as visible engagement towards dark engagement, which sounds very sinister.
It sounds very sinister.
Doesn't it? It sounds like it takes place with cloak and daggers. It's unfortunately not nearly that interesting. The shift towards dark engagement basically means either peer-to-peer or brand to individual, but not in a particularly visible way. So if, for example, your company posted something and I liked it on Instagram, that's visible engagement, because you could go on and you could see Natalie liked this post. The dark engagement that we're looking for is the type of engagement, we'll stick with Instagram as the example, but I might spot a great pair of shoes on Instagram and I might think, oh, I really like those shoes. And what I do, it gives me three options. I can either like that post on Instagram, which will still count, I can still physically like it, but it won't give the brand a number of likes. They can, if they really wanted to, go on and have someone add them up. So I could like it if I wanted to, I can comment if I wanted to, but those are kind of public and slightly less meaningful than the third option, which is to directly send that post to someone. So more meaningful interaction for me, a more meaningful engagement, is if I send a picture of those shoes via Instagram to my mum or my best friend, be like, what do you think of these shoes? It's actually something that encourages me in the sales process for that brand, but actually that brand has no way of tracking that engagement. The other type of engagement that would also class as dark engagement is if I then message the brand directly and said, where do I find these shoes on your website? So it's that level of engagement that's more than the surface level of simply liking, and it takes it to a deeper level. We are expected throughout 2020 to see more and more requirement for that one-on-one messaging from brands, and that gets me really, really excited, because as small business owners, it's something that we really, really can capitalize on, because we are far more more human than a bigger corporation.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a real selling point. And I think we did see in 2019, even the back end of 2018, a big shift towards bots. And lots of people were, you must get your Facebook messaging bot delivering. It must give automated answers. We're kind of beyond that. People want interactions with people.
Yeah, we're going back full circle. Like, we don't want any of that anymore. Definitely not. It's very frustrating, I find, at times.
Absolutely.
Just automatic answers. It's not cool.
Yeah, it's not what you want. So we are seeing audiences, as impatient as they are, really look for that human connection and be able to speak to an individual. If you look at the types of businesses that might have a huge social media following, such as pick a national supermarket or a fast fashion chain. If you look at the types of things that they deal with on their social media in terms of the huge volume of inquiries, they will often initial those sign-offs. So if they're assisting a customer, the kind of sign-off will be initialed to create an element of human connection, but also it means that they can track it more easily internally. But that human connection, and often we see a shift in brand voice towards the end of 2019 into 2020, of rather than be the voice of Tesco, we are the voice of, if a customer is getting in touch, I will look into that, not we will look into that for you. So we're seeing a really big shift in the way in which individuals expect to be able to interact with companies as to on more of a human to human level, which is really, really exciting. So I would say, in terms of things to ditch, posting for the sake of posting, automating for the sake of automating, and bits that make you slightly less human when you could be a little bit more human.
Yeah, totally. Just personalisation, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, it definitely works.
Very cool. So is there anything that we oh, sorry, you've just asked that question. Sorry, Claude.
Fine, I was going to get your sister anyway.
We're rambling on.
Natalie, could you shift in a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
When you're looking at Kirsty, I can more or less just see the back of your head.
Oh, really?
It's fine. But just a little bit further in.
No
So
worries.
3 easy quick wins that I can do to make a difference. So Natalie, 3 little easy quick wins that can make a difference. Have you got any little hints and tips on how to do that?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's loads of things that you can do potentially, but what you really want to do is figure out what's going to have that immediate impact with minimal sort of pain point. You want to be able to try things and just see how they work for your business. And the really, really nice thing about social media is it is quite disposable content still. So it's content that is designed to be put out on a human-to-human level via social media, but not necessarily hang around for too long. We see it particularly with things like the creation of video for platforms like LinkedIn, and that being able to create a video that might just be you talking to camera a little bit like we are right now, just to share a little bit of advice, a bit of knowledge, a bit of tips. That might not be a video that's perfectly edited and then goes on your website afterwards, but it might be something that immediately has a bit of impact and assists your LinkedIn audience. So I would say, with that in mind, video is going to be a key area for growth. So anything that as a business you can include in a video format will work very, very well. My advice would be, make it so it gives some information away. You're looking to establish rapport and trust with your audience, and you're going out into a really, really busy, loud space. Whatever network you're going on, there will be other people that do exactly what you do in a similar way. You might do it far better, but usually the kicker is a customer won't know that you do it better until they're actually on your books. So how do we get them on the books? So I would always advise, if we can, add value. Now, video gives you a great opportunity to add value. It means that people are able to interact with you a little bit. Video trends that we are seeing for 2020 are shorter video. So if you look at Twitter, it's recommending 6 seconds now for Facebook. Yeah, I know, right? 6 seconds. That's probably enough time to say 6 seconds and then you're out of it. But it's all about video that creates a little snippet and then leads to something else. else. So video as part of an intro to something. For Facebook, they're recommending 15 seconds, which again is really tight. So it's about maximizing those video opportunities. The nice thing is it's 6 or 15 seconds. That type of content is hopefully a little bit easier to produce. It's a little bit more disposable. So my advice would be definitely give video a go in 2020.
So what would you say, because I know it can be quite daunting recording yourself or even recording something else with your voice in the background, especially, I mean, like, we're in the world of digital marketing, we still get a bit like behind the camera. But what, you know, if you're somebody who has like a trade business, how would you advise them to get into the hang of, or just giving it a go?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just about diving in, but I would say with that, be very, very kind to yourself. So if you don't feel like recording video content, then recording video content is probably the worst thing that you can do. I usually set it as a task. So in my office, we do record LinkedIn videos, and I will procrastinate and do my desk will be spotless before that LinkedIn video gets recorded. But it's about making it sort of realistic. So I'll get it in my head that I know that I have to record a video, and then that puts it on my agenda for the week. Once it's on the agenda, I find it a little bit more easy, because once it's on my to-do list, I've kind of got to tick it off or keep rolling it over till it gets done. So make it a formal task and appreciate that it brings value to your business. I think sometimes with marketing, businesses can feel a little bit like, oh, well, I'll get on with that client work instead. So make sure you kind of factor in time, be kind, and record the video when you feel at your most high energy. My advice would be give yourself plenty of time to record it. Even if you're going for 15 seconds, it might take you 5 minutes to get a perfect take, or you might then need to think, okay, I'm going to edit it afterwards. And keep it very, very high energy, so as nice and friendly, and try and imagine that you're speaking to a real person rather than just recording it to a camera. Sometimes it's easier to record with anyone else in the business or with a friend or family member and have them sort of behind the camera just giving you a little smile so it feels a bit more human. For me, in terms of creating video content and deciding what I want to talk about, I don't know whether I should tell you this because it properly lets the cat out of the bag now. I usually pick something that is going to be really, really relevant to businesses and connections that I have on whatever platform I'm recording the video for. So because we are B2B, most of our video content goes out on LinkedIn. So I will think about all the things that are happening in the digital marketing world, all the things that are headlines in social media, and then I'll think, okay, who's actually in my network on LinkedIn that is going to watch the video and might be interested in this. And then when I record the video, I imagine I'm basically saying it to that person or that group of people, and it makes it so much easier to get that information
so like work
across.
Backwards from what you
Absolutely. So if you've ever watched one of my LinkedIn videos, it might have been recorded just for you, which is a bit creepy. But it really, really helps. It comes back to that old school marketing, get your buyer persona in your head. But for me, it's get your sort of who you're directly addressing persona. It could be someone that works with us day in, day out. It could be someone that I met once at a networking event, but actually I thought their business was really interesting and I'd really like to give them this little top tip. So it's always completely anonymized, but I always have a actual person or group of people in my head, and that really, really helps me.
I'm going to watch all of your videos now. I know, that's great, Natalie. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Don't know, Claude. Stop.
Sorry, no, I don't think it was.
I can give you 2 more things
for
sorry,
nice.
No, don't worry, we went off a total video tangent. That was good though, it was really good.
You're going to cringe us and be like, nah, we don't want it, you're going to have to do it again.
Okay, from the top.
But no, so Natalie's still got 2 more points.
Do you want to?
Do I need to like?
You could say go with and getting back to those additional things you can do.
So
oh no.
Right, okay. So there was a couple more tips that you had for us then, Natalie.
Absolutely, and I think kind of it links to the video content in terms of get your head around the fact that you need to produce it, but also having a little bit of time invested in putting together a content planner will assist massively with having a view of where you want your digital marketing and social media posts to go in 2020. We're really lucky because this is the time of year that social media management platforms and even social networks themselves put out suggested content planners that mean that us as marketers can go, okay, these are the trends, these are the things that we potentially expect people to be talking about in 2020. So you've got little things like the Olympics. You've got to be really careful with Olympics marketing, just to go off on a complete tangent here. Olympics are very, very strict. You are able to reference the Olympics but not use it to sell your product or service in any way. And every 4 years we do see even small businesses fall foul of this. Yeah, because your content on social is so discoverable. So unless you are an official sponsor like Coca-Cola or McDonald's, just don't even touch the Olympics in terms of having a bit of product placement. But it's absolutely fine to talk about it. So if, for example, you are a snowboarding brand and you want to talk about the sports that are there and talk about how great it is to see sports on a kind of, international stage because it fits with the types of things that your audiences are interested in, that's absolutely perfect. But if you want to say, oh, here's this product fit for an Olympian, you might fall foul of it. So be super careful with things like that. But giving yourself the content planner in advance and allowing time is going to be a really, really key opportunity. So give yourself time with your content. If you get a content planner in place, also have a little look at things like days of the year calendar for really fun, totally curveball social media content you can jump on the back of.
This is your dog day. This day is dedicated to your dog.
Absolutely. Well, everyone loves dogs in the office. So any excuse to shoehorn in cute animals or children is always an absolute golden ticket. But usually it's the type of thing you might hear about on the radio on the way to work, that it's International Chocolate Sunday Day, and you think, I wish I'd known that yesterday because X, Y, and Z. But if you can get all that content prepped at the start of the year, it gives you a really sort of clear plan. And it's not about creating a content plan and then ticking absolutely everything off. It's creating a content plan that has all of the available opportunities, and then as we go through the year, evolving your strategy, deciding what you want to include, what bits you're going to ditch, because actually they're probably less relevant than they were back in January when we get to October. But having a bit of a clear steer will massively help. It will give you time, and it will give you the opportunity to even think about your social media content when you're not thinking about your social media content.
Cool. I guess as well, with when you talk about big events like the Olympics, obviously it's great to plan ahead and schedule things, but they're ongoing things, so you'd have to keep an eye on it to make sure you're not saying like, oh, well done GB, when they've just got absolutely no medals whatsoever.
Absolutely, and the world changes very, very quickly, which can be a super positive thing for brands and give you this absolute golden opportunity to tap into something, but it can also be a little bit of a negative thing. So as much as you might schedule content, my advice would be, if the world spins a little bit and things change, we refer to it in the office as pressing the big red button. So if things aren't quite, you're not quite sure, there could be a situation unfolding that has, pulled a lot of headlines, and that the conversation on Twitter, for example, is now going to be dominated by whatever this thing is, you might need to just press the big red button, which is our code for just pause everything and we'll come back to it when the conversation has shifted, because at best you don't want to be the brand that's talking about a product or service when the world is looking at something else, or at worst, certain words or phrases might suddenly actually not be really that appropriate to use. And I think as the world is more turbulent and as businesses schedule more and get used to scheduling, it becomes a little bit more of a trap that we can fall into in 2020. So just be aware that you can schedule your content, but you can't schedule the conversation. So you can go, okay, this is what I think the world's going to talk about, and I will be super positive about Team GB, but we'll just keep a very close eye on how that actually plays out.
Perfect. And for your third tip, Natalie?
Oh, third tip, I would recommend going super visual with everything in 2020. It will give you a couple of different advantages. So if you are a B2B business and you are basically promoting something that is a little bit more abstract, so it could be consultancy or it could be a service or software or something that isn't actually that visual. If you imagine, if you are a lovely crafter and you sell fantastic things on Etsy, you can have a ton of beautiful things to photograph at any given moment. But we are seeing, as social networks get much noisier, we are seeing a distinct shift towards everything becoming more visual, and businesses that are potentially at risk of being left behind. So I see things like insurance firms on Facebook that are still posting that don't have an image attached to the post. So my advice would be make sure everything is as visual as it possibly can be. There's a whole wealth of free to use stock image websites out there if you are struggling to get images for your business, and I think often that's overlooked a little bit by brands. So I think particularly from a small business kind of perspective, make everything as visual as you can possibly get it. That also offers you little things that feed into some of the other trends that we've seen. So the sort of desperate shift towards personalization, if we look at mixing up your imagery, it can have a really dramatic, distinct kind of effect. The example that I always use is, everyone does this, but at a business expo we'll have seen it a million times, so I'm going to run you through it anyway. There might only be one or two of you on the stand. You create the stand looks amazing. You photograph the stand for social media because you know that you need to post it. There's a hashtag you want to use, you're at the top of your social game. You photograph the stand and then you put that out on your social media saying, we're here, come and see us, have a great chat, and there's lots of info. And the picture is just the stand, not the people. So actually we've given a call to action to come and see an empty stand.
Yeah.
But if we were to go, okay, let's rewind and reassess this, even if you're there by yourself, can you get the person at the next stand to just take a quick photo of you at the stand?
Totally.
Your content's suddenly so much more human, human by from human, people looking for a more personal social aspect. It's a great opportunity. Even if you are taking images in the office and you don't necessarily want to be in them all the time, particularly if it's a small business, you don't always want it to be your face. Absolutely, the global face of a two-man accountancy firm. So what it effectively means is you can use little clues of human without going full on human. So if you wanted to talk about having a great meeting or something like that, you could have a notebook with your brand logo on and then just a hand or a pen, so it looks like you're writing something, or knocking the mic entirely as I just have, just as a bit of an action shot. It will just add that human element of, okay, there's some people here. And that will really, really help in terms of taking your content to the next step and making it so much more kind of impactful when it goes out in front of your audiences.
I received a press release recently, and it was about a window sales company getting some funding, and any story like that, it's always just people shaking hands. But they'd taken photos in their showroom of them just hanging out of the windows, and I was like, that's so fun, and I remember it forever now.
That's caught my eye.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's exactly what you're going for. So don't be afraid to insert a little bit of personality in your imagery, but make sure that you are at the very least making it visual for audiences in 2020, because it's really, really going to deliver.
Perfect.
Cool.
So Natalie, last Black Friday I purchased my first ever Alexa, and it's amazing. And I realised when I went to my mum and dad's last week that I was just shouting at their speakers and was so annoyed that I had to use my fingers. How do you think voice search is going to change on social media in the next year?
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting kind of concept. Congratulations on the Alexa.
I'm behind the times here. I am going these Alexa things.
They are super high tech, and it really does give a different dynamic to how we're going to be performing digitally kind of for the future. We saw a massive change in 2019 that I expect to kind of roll out in 2020 around electronic and voice search devices becoming less of a niche product and more of a mass market product, and also widening the age groups that would have potentially been interested in that type of device, particularly as we see them forming almost a companionship level for certain older older generations, and there's some really clever software systems that are working and developing, putting things in place that will really actually help from a human point of view in that regard. In terms of from a business perspective and how we can expect this to shift, is we largely see a world of people who will Google whatever they need to know. We actually, in a sort of, pop psychology way, we see people less able to retain information than 30 or 40 years ago.
Guilty.
Because we very, very much rely on the fact that I can get the answer from this. So we learn how to Google something rather than we remember what that bit of information is. So that's a little bit eye-opening. But what we're seeing is that shift away from Google dependency to Hey Siri or Hey Alexa dependency, and we actually speak to these devices and integrate them into our lives. So from a social media marketing perspective, they are taking a hell of a lot of information about us in terms of the types of things that we're interested in, what we do, where we go. If we sync them to our diaries or family schedules, they're actually creating this whole bank of info about us. Now, what they and the likes of something like Facebook would say is actually this is great because we are personalizing our advert experience. So it means that Alexa or Siri or anything via Facebook can then actually give us more information because they know more likely what we're going to be interested in. And the sort of, I don't want to say invasion, I'm struggling for a better word. The keenness of these devices to track everything that we might talk about will help massively personalize the advertising experience going forward. In terms like if you would look at what Gary Vee, for example, would be talking about from a brand strategy point of view, he's saying that the value is going to be in asserting your brand right now before we become entirely dependent upon these devices. So rather than say, hey Alexa, I want to order a takeaway and I want to eat a burger, you might say, hey Alexa, I want to order a takeaway, order me a Big Mac. So can we get the brand in there? So the importance of actually drilling home the brand, even on a big sort of marketing budget of a large corporation, even down to a smaller marketing budget of a smaller kind of organization, just being aware that brand is really going to become increasingly important as we go forward. In terms of how voice might actually impact the platforms that we use literally day to day, I've got it's an eye-opening example. We do work with the automotive sector a little bit, and I drive a car. I do not have a motorbike license. I have no interest in motorbikes. We have no motorbike clients, and I've never Googled motorbikes in my life. But my other half is a biker. He uses it for commuting. It's very much a separate part of my life. I'm not really involved in that. Now, just before Christmas, we were on our way to town to do a bit of Christmas shopping, go for some lunch. And he said on the way in, I need to stop off at Honda Motorcycles because I need to pick up some new tyres. We go into Honda Motorcycles. My phone is with me. I'm in there for the first time ever. I potentially go to somewhere where I could buy a motorcycle. While we are there, in the centre of the showroom, he points at two little matching monkey sports bikes and goes, you should do your CVT and then we can get matching monkey bikes. Nice try, Peter. I'm not having any more motorbikes in the house. It's getting ridiculous now. So I think nothing more about that until a couple of hours later, and we're sat down having a coffee in between mass Christmas shopping. And I open my phone and I go onto Facebook. Now, the first advert that I see is from Harley Davidson. And the text reads, ready to ride but need a motorbike license. It offers me a package that I can then get a bike and I can get my lessons all via Harley Davidson, and it shows me a lovely short video of a woman riding a motorbike.
So Peter was clapping his hands.
Yeah. Total backup for him. So it meant actually that if we look at voice, even in terms of things that we are saying out loud, but we're actually not giving consent. I'm not giving that instruction to my iPhone that's what I'm looking for. Voice is massively something that's being picked up upon, and it is terrifying, but actually if you think about that from a brand perspective, I've never been more in the market than I am in the moment, and it's serving me the absolute right message at the right time. So it effectively does let marketers take their kind of targeting to the absolute next level. And the nice thing about this in terms of the Facebook metrics that are used for that, there is absolutely no difference between the targeting options that Harley Davidson might have and a small independent motorbike dealer might have. So it could even be something that completely levels the playing field. So we're seeing absolute huge implications for voice, whether that is voice that we're giving consent to or whether that's voice
it's
that's
when you
just
don't remember saying it, you thought it. Oh my God.
absolutely.
I just thought about this. This is happening. Fascinating.
No, that's really interesting. Thank you, Natalie.
No, give it a try. If you have a cat, talk about dog food. If you have a dog, talk about cat food, and just see what ads you get. It's eye-opening.
Well, that's been great, talking us through the trends for 2020. Thank you very much for that, Natalie. Thanks to Ashley. And it's goodbye from me. We hope to see you again very soon, and we hope you took something useful away from that. Goodbye.